I think that I'm lucky enough in life, I know I'm lucky enough in life, to be able to associate pretty much with whom I want to in business or socially or wherever. And I think it's sort of crazy. I think the ideal thing is to focus with people that are better than you are, because you will move in the direction of the people you associate with. And I advise students all of the time, marry somebody. It can't be done mathematically if everybody tries to do it, but your behavior will move in the direction of the people you associate with. And so why not associate with the best? I mean, I've had a number of heroes in life, and associating with them has done wonders for me. I would not have been the same person. I would not have had the same fun in life if I'd been indiscriminate in terms of who I associate with over time. We started with my heroes. You start with my dad. You move on to Ben Graham. You move on to my partner Charlie Munger. Kay Graham was definitely a hero of mine. My wives have been heroes in both cases. They've all done wonders for me, and basically not expected anything in return. I mean, I have these friends that they do 10 things for me, and they're thinking about doing the 11th rather than whether they're going to get one in return for me and from me. And I've been lucky in life that I've never had a hero that's let me down. That would be a terrible experience to really have your belief in somebody that you sort of worshipped shattered, and it's never happened to me. Loyalty and my partner Charlie Munger in business, for example, we don't keep score, as to who's done the most work or anything of the sort, and in a marriage that's important. I mean, but it's. I had a fellow named Lorimer Davidson at Geico who spent 4 hours with me in a January day in 1951. He changed my life. He had no expectation he was going to get a thing from me, but I came there on a Saturday and banged on the door of what was then called Government Employees Insurance, now called Geico, and a janitor finally let me in, and he was the only one in the office, this Lorimer Davidson. And he spent 4 hours with me giving me an education that literally did change my life. And you're very, very fortunate in life when you run into people like that. Ben Graham, I mean, he never asked anything of me. I mean, he just basically gave. I mean, he taught for 25 years or so at Columbia, and he was creating future competitors. I mean, I'm sure he didn't, if he took any money for it, he gave it right back to the school. But he basically was, as somebody said, he was planting trees that other people would sit under, and I've had a number of them like that, and it's been wonderful. Well, I never saw him do anything that you couldn't put on the front page of the paper, now he was probably the best teacher without attempting to be a teacher, with all three of us kids. So we all grew up knowing that we had unconditional love from my dad. That doesn't mean he thought we could get away with everything. There were times when I felt his disapproval, but he had a terrific way of showing his disapproval. I mean, he would basically, and he had plenty of reasons for having disapproval too, but he basically would just essentially say, I know you can do better than that. He had his own way of saying it, but he didn't, and I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice, in my lifetime. But you knew if he was disappointed with you, and that would have a big effect with all three of us actually, but including me. I wanted to please my dad more than I wanted to please my mother. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we all did. And we knew, incidentally, we didn't have to do a lot to do that. We just had to do our best. He never attempted in any way to steer me into any kind of activity. He encouraged me to go to college when I didn't want to go to college. But in terms of whether I was, if you'd asked his preference, he never would have said it to me. But he probably would have liked me to be a preacher or something of the sort. But he did not try and steer me in any direction. And even in terms of, later on, in terms of getting married or anything of the sort, he was just for me. It's a great feeling. I mean, he was an optimist. He believed very much in having an inner scorecard and never worry about what other people are thinking about you. You know, just if you know why you're doing what you're doing, that's good enough. And he read a lot. He was an introvert to some degree. He liked people, but he also liked just sitting and reading, liked talking with the kids. And so he was a sensational teacher over the years. But we were learning how he saw life, and it made a lot of sense to us. So we started seeing life the same way. And he always emphasized that it's your inner scorecard that counts. Don't worry about what the rest of the world thinks. He was probably a little bit better than that than any of his kids were, but it sunk in. My mother was very smart and cared a lot about her children, but she'd had a very, very tough childhood. Her mother ended up in a mental institution, and one of her sisters joined it. The other sister committed suicide. Her brother, who was a superstar, died at about age 30. So that she'd had a tough life, so she was very dutiful about taking care of the kids. But you didn't get the same feeling of love. It was there, but it didn't come out the same way as with my dad. Well, Charlie Munger has been a wonderful partner. He's ungodly smart. He's got a much broader intellect than I do. He's a smarter guy in about 100 fields than I am, and he's magnificent at being able to condense important ideas into just a very few words, and he's always honest in what he tells me, so I listen to him. In fact, I just changed my behavior on something last week because of probably a 10-word sentence he said to me. In investing, he had a big impact on me in moving me somewhat away from Ben Graham and looking for really wonderful companies at fair prices rather than fair companies at wonderful prices. So he moved me toward quality businesses. And that was enormously important because it enabled Berkshire to scale up in a way that would have been impossible buying the kind of lower grade businesses we bought at cheap prices originally. Well, Susie, when I was in my teens, I developed really pretty decent skills in terms of business, but I hadn't really come to terms with the world exactly, and I was an unbalanced individual. I may still be, but Susie really put me together, and she was the one that had the little watering can, and I was the seed in the soil. But it took the watering can from Susie to help me really grow up and mature. She was a wonderful person, and she believed in me. She put me together, and I would not have been. I would not only turn out to be the person I've turned out to be, but I actually wouldn't have been as successful in business without that. And, she made me more of a whole person. She never cared about money or business at all. One time we had dinner with a friend of mine, Herb Wolf, in New York, and as we were coming back on the subway to Manhattan, he lived out a ways. She said, Warren, how many 100,000s are there in a million? And at that time, I knew I shouldn't turn the checkbook over to her.